Good morning, everyone. Today we're in Costa Maya. We're going to be doing the Chaccoben's ruins tour. Today we've chosen to do it through the native choice. So you have to leave the port, walk through security, and walk straight towards this giant Mayan temple in the middle of the street. Obviously it's fake. And then right next to that, you're going to see this little hut behind me over here. And this hut is the white native choice hut. They had really high reviews on TripAdvisor. This is their 20th year doing this, so we're gonna see how this tour goes. It's slated to take about 4 hours.
Now, one thing we do want to note is how far the walk is. You do have to walk all the way down the pier. The shuttles usually aren't running in the morning, and then through the port, through security, and then up to the pyramid that Stephen was referring to. So for us, walking at a brisker pace, it took us about 15 to 18 minutes. So keep in mind, you don't want to get off the ship late because then you may miss your excursion because it is a good walk to the meeting point.
So we're back from Chaccoben. I just wanted to tell you, while it isn't the biggest Mayan ruins you're gonna go to, it is of decent size. The tour itself took about an hour and change while we were there to complete. Now, something I want to point out is that this is not an accessible tour, at least in our opinion. We also asked our tour guide about that to see what she thought. She also felt that it wasn't necessarily accessible either. If you have a jogging stroller with those big wheels, you can probably bring that and you'll be fine. We asked about if motorized scooters were allowed, and they said they didn't think so because the initial path as you come in, which you'll see here, is actually shale. And this shale, as you can see, makes it kind of difficult to walk in at points when it's softer. So I can only imagine that wheelchair wheels and thick, heavy scooter wheels are just gonna sink in this. They're not really gonna be able to roll very well, which is pretty unfortunate because after that, everything else is just a hard-packed path. Now just know that because none of the paths are paved or sidewalks like concrete, you're gonna get covered in limestone dust, basically up to your knees walking around. Our shoes were filthy. I mean, this picture of my Hokas, they were basically brand new and black. You can see what they look like now. Really wasn't a big deal. We were able to wipe it down and wash it off. And after sweating as much as we did while we were out there, we ended up having to come back and take showers anyway, so we didn't really mind it, but I know some people might mind it. You probably want to wear closed-toed shoes to this excursion. As you come off that first shale trail, the very first ruin you're gonna see is actually this government pyramid. So this is where the government actually operated out of, and this is not even the entrance to it. This is the back side that you're looking at. You don't actually see the rest of it till a little later on in the trip. We then went to a residential area. In that residential area, we were able to see ruins of some houses. She told us some neat facts about what was found there. I'm not gonna tell you guys everything. I don't want to spoil the trip for you. We saw several other large residential ruins, which were pretty impressive. That's where we actually found some of the colors that she was able to point out to us. And then finally we turned around, walked further, came around. We ended up seeing the front of that government temple, which was really interesting. One of the questions I had was, you can see there's this very fine line that goes around a lot of these ruins. And I was like, was that just like an artistical choice of the Mayans? Because you can just see it's a very clear defined line. Almost looks like somebody took their fingers in the mortar and made this very fine line. It ended up that that's a demarcation line. So that's what was original and what has been restored. So anything below that line is original as they've seen it since they've excavated it. Anything above that they've had to restore, not rebuild, but just restore it. And that's a continual process due to the degradation of the limestone from the sun, the elements, the water. While we were at that government temple, we did notice other tour guides are pointing out a lot of things about the temple. However, they weren't really pointing out some of those smaller intricacies like Native Choice was for us. One of the first things that she pointed out that seemed to be missed by a lot of people was behind us in this open plaza, there's a circle area, and it was actually a sacrifice area. They didn't do a lot of their sacrifices in the temple, they did it over here. So much so, there were people sitting on it at one point, which just seemed odd to be sitting on a place where people were sacrificed. I guess if they didn't know, they didn't know. In my opinion, Rosie saved the best for last, and she took us to temple number 1, and that was just spectacular. This is a ruin you're actually allowed to climb up on top of and go look at more ruins that are actually stacked on top of that ruin. And it was amazing. So that was just really neat, and what was awesome to see is they were also doing some restoration and excavation up there while we were there. Obviously, we weren't allowed to go into that area or take pictures of that area up close. In totality, the tour was about 1,500 steps all the way around the Mayan ruins there. Climbing up temple number 1 is very arduous. The initial steps are very, very tall. The steps start changing in size. It appears to be about 3 stories up, and it's fairly steep. We were given the choice to either go up or not. Everyone in our group chose to go up, and everyone was fine. But obviously just know that that is going to be a little more difficult, putting it back into that not accessible category if you're wanting to go see that up there. I gotta say, Native Tours did a great job on this tour as well. One of the first things I noticed off the rip is that she did a great job of keeping us away from other tours. Obviously, because the cruise line also books tours there was busloads of people that ended up going there. However, she kind of figured out which way they were going and what route they were taking and took us a completely different route. So while everyone went one way, she took us the other way, and we basically just crossed at the middle for a short period of time and basically felt like we had the place to ourselves. One of the really neat things about the Native Tour was that we were there basically with only 10 people. So it felt like a very personalized tour. She was able to answer a lot of our questions for us, and as I'd be looking at something or other people would be looking at something, she would come over and point out something that we may have missed, like, oh, do you see this color here? That's original color on the back of this glyph. And that's how we know that this was actually a red facade and not just limestone as you see it today. Rosie's English was fantastic, and she was able to point out a lot of neat features, explain stuff to us. As a matter of fact, she even taught us a bit of Mayan math. Rosie also did a good job pointing out all the other areas that have yet to be excavated, and it is a lot. Basically, she said that whole area is very flat. So anything with a hill or a mound is essentially known to be a Mayan ruin that they just haven't discovered yet. And by discovered, I mean excavated yet. Another good thing Native Choice did was they brought bottles of water for everybody, and not like one bottle of cold water. We were offered multiple bottles of water multiple times throughout the trips, and they were all cold. Looking around at the other tours, they were obviously struggling. It was very hot, it was very muggy, it was not pleasant to say the least. Having a great tour guide and somebody providing water to us was really, really nice, and we did appreciate that. Now, our 1,100 steps were at a fairly leisurely pace, not really rushed at all. Like I said, we had about an hour and a half to explore this area before we had to turn around and go back. So if you're looking to leave the port Costa Maya and actually go do something outside of there, I would say these ruins are worth it. And at the price we paid, I want to say it was around $50 to go with the Native Choice. I would highly recommend doing it with them. We were back in plenty of time, and they reassured us multiple times we will make sure everyone is back at the ship and the ship does not leave you guys. And this is not a sponsored video. But if you're not sure if this is for you, or maybe the accessibility limits are the problem, then I recommend watching our Costa Maya port guide here, which will show you all the free things there is to do around the port. And either way, make sure you watch the 5 top scams in Costa Maya so you don't get scammed.